Welcome to another episode of Agent versus Lender, and I'm excited to have with us today Abe Shreve, who is the CEO of Business Maps Training and Coaching. So I'm really excited to have him here to talk with us about business coaching, right?
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. You and I have known each other for a long time. You knew me when I was younger and dumber. I'm older and dumber, but I was younger and dumber then.
Right, yeah. So
we've known each other for quite a while.
Yeah, so I've been in the business 26 years, and I don't remember exactly when I met you, but it was a long time ago. You were a real estate agent, sitting in a little tiny cubicle, trying to just like the rest of us, trying to make ends meet, and here you are, CEO of a company that does coaching and training. And by the way, I've heard, I always check people out before I have them on, and I've known you for a long time, but it comes really highly recommended. And as I actually talked to Abe just the other day, and we sat at a barbecue and was talking, and the more I talk to Abe, the more impressed I am with his knowledge of business and how to dive into a business and how to pick it apart so that you can make it better.
Yeah.
So tell us about business, your coaching business, how you got into it, and whatever else you want to tell us about. We want to talk about guitars and
I love guitars. We can just spend our time there. Well, so for me, coaching is, in fact, the way I describe coaching, we have made our mission here, which is it's a sacred partnership. And what we say in our company is we create sacred partnerships that require the best in us to bring out the best in them. And business under the best of circumstances has some really hard days, doesn't it?
It does. Lots of hard days.
And there is a thing called entrepreneurial loneliness.
I've never heard that term.
Yeah.
But I can relate to that.
If I ask you, you can really tell me what you think that is. What is entrepreneurial loneliness?
Well, I think that would be something. An entrepreneur is not the same as a salesperson or somebody that's working, because you're trying to build something much bigger than what most people see. And so sometimes you just feel like you're out there by yourself trying to create this vision, and you're trying to bring people into that vision. And sometimes it's hard to do that. Yeah. So I don't know if that's where you're coming from.
I agree with you. And there's some fears.
Oh, totally.
Well, and some of those fears are the people that work here are going to discover I don't really know all that I think I do. And, there's insecurities that come.
Sure.
Many of us, especially those of us with more intense personality profiles, we'll cover that up with charisma and passion and vision and energy. But at the end of the day, a business requires all of those things, but it also requires leadership, systems, models. It needs to make money.
Right.
It needs to provide opportunity. And I think is infinitely more healthy when vulnerability is not only allowed, but embraced and encouraged as we learn, grow, fail, advance. So for me, I came into coaching because of the influence of great coaches that I hired. And specifically around, you may remember in 2008, there was this thing that occurred. I blacked out for 7 years. So I don't know.
2008, you're talking about the crash in the housing?
Complete crash of life as we knew it.
Yeah.
And that was rough on me because I got into the real estate business and I did the things that you do when you're new.
Yeah.
I tried to make beautiful flyers, and I did open houses. And I had a really great mentor, Bob Hill. Do you know Bob?
I do know Bob
To
Hill.
this day, I consider Bob one of the great mentors in my life.
Bob's awesome.
He's wonderful.
Yeah.
Funny story about Bob. I'd gotten into real estate. I was working my guts out. I had a bunch of listings that weren't selling. And they weren't selling because I sucked at taking them. I bought them. In other words, I told the seller, we could do it for that. And, I just had no skills. But Bob could see my efforts. We were out of money. And I just felt the pressure of that. I remember I went into Bob's office, and I was just feeling it. And he's like, come in here. Pulled me in his office, sat me down. He's like, what's going on? And as a great leader does, he could read beyond what I was saying and just pulled it out of me. And I even think I broke down and blubbered like, a 10-year-old, which I can do on occasion. And he just said, what do you need? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, just tell me the amount that you need. And he said, Christmas is coming up, and I don't want you, Abe. I remember he said, Abe, look at me. I looked up. He's like, those kids are getting a full Christmas. What do you need? And I said, well, and I started to name like, these are our bills. He goes, I don't want to know any of that. I trust you 100%. I want to figure what helps you, and more importantly, helps your wife relax so you can go to work.
Wow.
And then I gave him the number, and I had a check in my hand, like 10 minutes. And he said, we'll pay this back 10% at a time out of closings. And
that's a rare, that is a rare mentor. I mean, not as a mentor, but that shows that he believed in you and that he believed in your ability to make it work.
Yeah.
Because it's not like anybody's just going to write you a check and hope that it comes back.
Yeah.
So he knew it would.
Bob taught me a tremendous lesson. What he taught me was that real estate is the thing we do, but your people are your company.
Right. Yeah.
That's the investment. I've learned that from other great leaders. And so I was into coaching, and I had changed companies, along the way, and Bob and I have stayed close. And but I hired a coach, and I also was in the new construction world, so I had a new construction company.
Yep.
And I got paid when we bought the land, when we sold lots, when we developed, when we built homes. When they would sell their home, I'd list their home. It was a season of printing money, and I had a wonderful partner named Scott Thompson, just a gem of a person. So when the market crashed, and yesterday homes are selling before the foundation's done, and today no one is inquiring. It was hard.
Yeah.
And it took maybe 7 years to dig out of that. I was the personal guarantor on a bunch of those homes, and it was just rough.
Yeah.
As it was for many of us. Like, I was certainly not alone in that.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I know a lot of builders that really, really struggled, and some of them aren't in business today.
Yeah. Well, I remember I went to a conference. I was a little desperate because I hadn't built my business the way I started with some of those traditional things, but I had quickly moved to this new construction gig, and it was rocking. But it was now gone. And I had to learn how to do this or do something else. And so I'd gone to a conference, kind of took our last money and went to a conference. And I remember I heard this coach get up and speak, and some will know him. His name's Tony DeCello.
Yep.
Wonderful man, wonderful coach. And I heard him speak, and he was also the coach of like some of the highest producers in our whole industry. So there was a booth for the company that he was with, and I went out to that booth and talked to them about my situation. I remember I hired a coach. Now, tell me this, Ron. Have you ever gone to the conferences and you go into the vendor hall and you just get wowed by something, you buy it and never use it?
Well, all the time. like more at times than I want to admit.
Well, it's the same's true for me.
Yeah.
And but when I hired that coach, I remember I had 1 month. Like I recognized that, that if you're looking for someone that never failed to inspire you, I'm a poor fit. But I don't look for that. I look for those that have lived in the struggle.
Yeah, well, and I think in reality, people look at successful people and think, man, that person just, like, everything they touch turns to gold. But what they don't see is all the failures. So I don't know of one person, one successful, whatever success looks like to you, that has not failed somewhere. It's just that that's not what you see. You just see where they're at now.
That's it. And here's the truth. Behind the curtain, everyone struggles with something.
Yep.
In fact, I have a podcast. Can I mention that here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a podcast called Choose Difficult. In fact, producer Jake, who's across the room and the one helping us today, he and I put that podcast on, and we interview people that are really successful, and we tell the story of their struggle. We've had great people on there that you see, and people know them, but they don't know that backstory.
Right, yeah.
They don't know the day that they almost filed bankruptcy, or that they lost something, or that they went through a divorce, or just the things of life. They come to all of us, and so it's It is 100% true that it's less about what happens to you, more about how you respond to it. And we like to uncover that story because in the world of coaching, and this is what I learned as I had hired my coach, in the world of coaching, it isn't about being perfect. It's about being committed. And a great coach meets you on the front line of your business every week, helps you develop a clear plan, helps you get rid of the interference, those things that we have a tendency to cling to keep us from getting into action, holds us accountable, helps us through the rough times, helps us deal with changing environments, with whether it's with people on our teams or customers or changing market conditions. You know, I when I hired that coach, I remember I walked out of the conference. I left it, and I had this sense of I am not alone anymore, and I wasn't.
You know, I remember when I hired my first coach, and I was feeling some of those same things. But then 6 months later, it was just like 6 months, maybe a year later, I was doing a little better, but not significantly. And so I just thought, I don't know, coaching doesn't work. And what I found is that it wasn't the coaching, it was me not committing to the coaching. So they were coaching me things to do, and I wasn't doing all those things. So they were trying to hold me accountable. It was just that I didn't commit to it. And so it was years later before I decided I need to, and I'll tell you why. I was on a trip with my wife in Hawaii. Guess what was with me? My phone and my computer. So half of the time, literally half the time we were in Hawaii, I was either on the phone or on my computer instead of enjoying the time with my family. And after that trip, my wife said, Ron, I will never take another trip like that again. And so I just went, oh, yeah, that wasn't really fun. And about that time, another friend of mine who was a coach called me and says, hey, how you doing? And I started, there was a little more to that story. Actually, he called, he said, so where you at today? And I told him, he goes, so where do you want to be? And I told him, and he goes, Ron, you've been telling me that story for 12 years now. When are you going to do it? And I stopped, and I was kind of ticked off.
Yeah.
Because he was telling me the truth, but I didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But so it was probably 15, 20 seconds. Neither one of us said anything. And I started to laugh, and I said, you're right. I'm going to commit to this. And, 2 or 3 years later now, I have probably quadrupled my business because I committed to the coaching. It wasn't that coaching didn't work. It was just that I wasn't committed to it. So,
can I ask you about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you, when I hear you say that, my thought is, what did the coach do to call you out on that?
Well, I just told you.
It sounds like they let you off the hook a little bit, because what I heard you say is, I wasn't committing to the coaching, and it took years later.
Yeah. It took years because, I quit coaching.
Did you out-coach your coach?
I don't know. Did I?
Here's a question. Would you show up to the call, having not kept the commitments you made, but you would manufacture a fire or some, would you produce a reason why we're not going to go into that?
Of course. Of course, we'll all do that. So there was other things in my business, which we know is just creative avoidance. I'm gonna create something to avoid what really needs to be done.
Right.
So of course,
this is what I've learned. And listen, I don't know your coach, and I say this with all respect to coaches, because there's that work that happens behind the curtain that it's easy to judge from the outside.
Yeah, it is.
And, we're not there. My experience has been that the most valuable coaching relationships are the ones where it's your plan, it's your commitment. We're in rapport. We trust one another. We're committed to one another. It was your goal until you gave it to me and told me it was important to you, and then I made it my goal. And we have clarity. We have a plan in front of us. We have a way to measure, and we have a way to report, and we're clear. And when someone comes back and I didn't do it, we don't move on. And when there's things that come up that are keeping you that you're allowing to keep yourself from do it, we talk about those, because that's the interference I referenced earlier.
So how do you get people, if they didn't do it, how do you get people to move past that? How do you, I mean, you know, the person that you're coaching, they know, they feel bad. We don't want to get on the call with you because you're a coach. So how do you get people to move on? How do you get them to take action? And how do you get them to move forward with what their plan, what their real plan really is, that they're not executing?
So let me do this.
Okay.
I want to answer that question.
Okay.
I love that question. Let me fill in a few of the gaps of how I got to where I'm at.
Okay.
And then
sorry, I'm like taking you down these
No,
these
I'm going to do
paths,
this.
so.
I'll give you kind of the Reader's Digest version.
Okay, cool.
So Bob Hill is a great mentor of mine. And then Tony, I was with him in coaching. And I learned a ton from Tony. And he was my coach for 6 years. And I didn't... about the last year and a half, he would talk to me about becoming a coach because his wife was running the largest real estate coaching company in the world. And it just wasn't right timing for either of us. I ended up going to work for a gentleman named Brad Wilson, who is the owner of Destination Homes. And I went there thinking I knew business. He hired me to be his VP of Sales and Marketing. And Brad is in my opinion, he's a genius, an incredible human being. Right now, he's the Speaker of the House for the Utah House of Representatives.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he and his partner, Dave Bailey, have done really great over there. So I went there, and Brad hired me. And come on, I mean, the truth is, none of us are as good as we think we are. And we will often create a smokescreen to save face when we really don't know what we're doing. And so I went there. I was introduced to the team. It was a hard time. Remember, they're coming out of, they were one of the largest residential construction builders in the state of Utah. And I remember walking into Brad's office about 18 months in. And I said, just today, Brad, is the first day I think I know this job. How did you keep me around? And he laughed, and this will tell you everything about Brad. He said, well, most experts believe it takes about 18 months for a person in a new role to get to conscious competence. You know, the 4 quadrants. And he said, but we saw enough in you that you were worth investing in. I mean, that's
cool.
I worked with Brad for 3 years, and then I wanted to go into the coaching side of it, and I actually had reconnected with Tony, and I was introduced back into coaching. Well, I learned business from Brad. I worked hand in hand with that guy, and it took 18 months for me to learn how to run a real business. My real estate team, though we did well, wasn't a business like, a new construction company with lots of employees. And it was just a very different scenario. And so when I became a coach, they threw me some of their tough clients. These are the problem children. He even said that to me. I had one other mentor. Do you know who Matt Townsend is?
I do. Well, I know who he is. I don't personally know him.
He's a relationship communication expert, and he's a very close friend of mine. And Matt and I had met. I brought him in to speak to my leadership team, and Matt was getting his doctorate, needed someone to teach his classes, and had struggled to find someone. And for 3 years while he was getting his doctorate, I taught those classes, and I loved it because I loved the material. We were working with people on the verge of divorce, and it was an amazing experience. But I learned, that when you understand that a relationship is skill based, that as you grow in a marriage, that you change and they change, and it requires skills and tools to stay connected. When you understand that, and you will acknowledge that to one another and learn how to be better and learn some models. Teresa and I, we've been married 25 years, and our relationship has been profoundly enriched by what we've learned from Matt. And so I went into this coaching gig having had these incredible mentors, lots of failure and lots of learning. I've always been conscious to look in and not point out, to catalog the learning. There's been some long, dark, lonely nights. But, I've always wanted to get better. And so they threw me their problem children. One in particular. When this kid was 18 years old, he was hired by iOmega back in the day as a programmer.
I remember iOmega. And so when you say 18 years old, this is one of the problem children that handed you as an 18-year-old.
Now he's 45 and
Sure.
he has a real estate business that will do $150 million in residential real estate sales. And he was a problem. They couldn't find a coach to work with him. I talked to him for about 30 minutes. He wasn't a problem. He was a businessman.
Okay.
And I came in differently. I talked to him the way Brad talked to me, the way Tony talked to me. We developed a plan. And so for me, through that process, I started to get more of those. And I was working at a company that was owned by a gentleman named Gary Keller. And Gary Keller, I was blessed, really blessed, to start. He has a mastermind of his top 100 producers. And I
think most people that are listening to this know who Gary Keller is.
Well, I've learned not to assume because as I've gone out into the business world, in real estate they know him, but not in the general business world.
Okay.
And so I was coaching about a third of his top 100. And Tony was coaching another third. And Tony came to me after I was there for 3 months and said he wanted to retire and asked me would I partner with him and work with him and his clients. So for 22 months, if you were a client of Tony and I's, you had arguably the most seasoned, skilled coach in the business, and then, a young whippersnapper that was a little more current in technology and some new business models. Yet both of us coming at you full bore. And these are the players. When we did that for 22 months and then Tony retired, and, when I left that coaching world to start this business, I started Business Maps Training Coaching with Gary Keller. He approached me and asked me, I want to start a business with you. And I left that company to start this one. When I did that, I had just finished 10,000 calls, 10,000 coaching calls.
That's a lot.
And the people, one of the people I was coaching the year I left did 1,300 home sales.
That's a lot of home sales.
And people would look at her and say, well, I could do it if I had a big team. And that is said by someone who has never led people at that level. And they say, well, what did she make? Well, she made about $7 million. But more important to her than that was what her people made. She had great people.
Right, yeah.
And I want to be clear, she didn't do 1,300 home sales because I was her coach. We tell our coaches all the time, the minute you take credit for what your client has done, you're embezzling from their efforts. We're partners.
I like that.
It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, totally true.
She did 1,300 because she believed in coaching. She believed in improvement, and the partnership worked. So let me now come around to the question that you had.
Okay.
And because I wanted to give that setup.
No, and I appreciate that. I know that I almost interrupted and took you down a completely different path. So I'm glad you brought us back to where you were.
You and I have always easily talked. In fact, at the barbecue, there were maybe 100 people there, but I think I only talked to like two others. You and I talked for an hour straight.
Yeah, we did.
I really enjoyed it. And so let me be clear, the question that you asked. What is it that you do to get people doing the things that they know they need to do, but they don't want to? Is that what you said?
Right, yep.
Okay, so it comes with a couple of things. The first of that is you and they need a very clear why. You hear this a lot, but can I dig into this a little?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is it important? Why is it important? And saying because I just want to push myself is not enough.
And I'll also say that I think that because I want to make more money is not enough.
That's right. There's a reason you want to make more money.
Right.
And a great coach will get to that. We want to get to the root why. And some of the whys that we hear that I think are amazing are because the people around me that have come here to work with me, I want to give them my best. That's a great why. That will get you out of bed in the morning.
Yep.
Let me give you an example. You've maybe heard the phrase "talent will push you."
I haven't.
That's a Garyism.
Okay.
At least I heard it from Gary.
Okay.
I'm obsessive about sourcing, so you'll see me say something, and if I'm not sure I said it, which is most of the time, I will say, I don't know who said that. Because in our space, people steal things all the time,
Sure.
and I just think it's terrible.
Yeah.
I think people should get the credit. So, Craig Goodliffe?
No.
He's our local realtor.
The name, yeah, the name
transactions
sounds
this year.
familiar.
Yeah.
I just can't place it.
So Craig was in my team, I had what's called a buyer's agent, and Craig was my first one. I was not developed enough as a leader to do that, to have him. He was too high octane, but he thought he wanted to do it, and I thought I was ready, and we did it. We had a team meeting, and I was late, really late. And I'll never forget this. Craig called me on speaker and had my little team there and said, hey, this is not leadership. He walked me down in front of the whole team. I was pissed.
I'll bet.
I was so pissed. And I said, I'll be right there. And I was going to go in and give him a piece of my mind until I hung up the phone and realized he is not wrong.
Yep.
And I went there and I apologized. And we had a reset meeting. And I asked their expectations of me. Now, that day he led his leader in a really important, impactful way.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we think because we're the ones that originated the business, or we're the charismatic ones that kind of got this thing started, we think that we're somehow exempt from the rules that govern a great company culture. Mm-hmm. And we'll even cite things like we're busy. Well, I'm so busy. I'm making it rain. All that says to me is you've turned the hourglass over on the time your people will be happy here.
Yeah.
That's it. So it starts with a really important why, because you're going to have those days. And when you do, we're going back to why. And let me be clear about something too. A very skilled coach is going to work from a plan. So with our coaching clients, we have tools, coaching tools, forecasting. I'm a profound nerd when it comes to the coaching tools, financial forecasting, really diving into the return on every call that's made, being clear on what it costs you to not do the activity, being clear on what you're making from each person in your company, what they're making. Like, I find, Ron, that oftentimes when a business owner has that level of clarity, they are motivated.
Yeah.
Because they know what it can do for them.
Yeah.
And so,
and I like what you said, that what each person is making for the company, because a lot of times you think, oh, I can pay this person 30,000, 40,000, 50, 60, 80, whatever it is that you're paying somebody. A lot of people will look at, well, this is costing me X amount every single month or every single year. But what is that person, if that person is not bringing that value back plus some, then one, you're either paying that person too much or you have the wrong person.
Yeah. Or you're not leading.
Or you're not leading. That's actually probably, see, I'm learning a lot here too.
We start with that. Yeah. We have a really intense, in fact, I'd love to invite you to this. Come as my guest. We have a really intense series of courses called Leverage Leadership, where we teach how to recruit, hire, train, and lead top-tier talent. And we use advanced behavioral assessment, because let's face it, most of us work from our gut, mm-hmm. right? And there's, if you've ever read Blink or any of those books, you'll learn there's science in the gut. Mm-hmm. However, when we hire because we're really understaffed. We have a need. We're in pain. We're in pain because we don't have enough. We can't do it all, or there's a system we need that we don't know how to do it. We hire out of pain. Yep. When we hire out of pain, Ron, we'll start interviewing people, anyone. And we have a tendency to fall in love with our candidates, not in the weird way, but just we start to see this person could do it. Yeah. Then we start to assign to them, like, holy crap, this person, you walk out and your assistant says, how'd it go? And you're like, they're a rock star. Have you ever done this?
Yeah, totally.
Finally, we found finally.
Yeah.
Look, they looked great. And why'd they look great? It was an interview. Yeah. No one looks better than in their interview.
Right.
Maybe they're great. But remember when Brad said to me, it takes 18 months to conscious competence? Remember that?
Yep.
So it's important that when we hire someone, that they have a plan, a very clear, deliberate plan for their first 30, 60, and 90 days. That's something that we work a lot with our clients on. And there's a formal onboarding. People will work to the expectation they experience their first day hired. And when they show up and you're like, hey, all right, so today we're really loose. You're just going to shadow people. When the newness is wore off, they play loose because that's what you showed them that you do here.
Yeah.
So having a really deliberate plan that pushes them, real talent demands that.
Yeah.
They want it. They want to jump in the whitewater. They want to feel swept. And most of the businesses we work with have that. They're talented. You know, I think all the time, and I say all the time that we work with businesses in every state in this country.